Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth just finished what may go down as one of the most disastrous and embarrassing speeches ever delivered in front of US military generals and admirals. That's not hyperbole. I will show you the proof. You can see the military generals and admirals in the room, many of whom were pulled from bases around the world, forced to sit and listen as Donald Trump declares that cities like San Francisco, Chicago, New York, and Los Angeles are the new war zones. He called it a war from within and said key part of their mission would be invade these American cities. Do not take me word for it. Listen for yourself. Roll the clip.
What they've done to San Francisco, Chicago, New York, Los Angeles, they're very unsafe places, and we're going to straighten them out one by one. And this is going to be a major part for some of the people in this room. That's a war, too. It's a war from within. Controlling the physical territory of our border is essential to national security. We can't let these people in.
Then Donald Trump shifted gears and started complaining about the design of modern battleship, saying he preferred the look of the old solid steel one. Here's watch this clip.
To use an old term, I think we should maybe start thinking about battleships, by the way. You know, we have a Secretary of the Navy came to me because I look at the Iowa out in California and I look at different ships, the old pictures. I used to watch Victory at Sea. I love Victory at Sea. Look at these admirals. It's got to be your all-time in black and white. When I look at those ships, they came with the destroyers alongside of them, and man, nothing was going to stop. They were 20 deep, and they were in a straight line, and there was nothing going to stop them. And we actually talk about, you know, those ships. Some people would say, no, that's old technology. I don't know. I don't think it's old technology when you look at those guns, but it's something we're actually considering, the concept of battleship. Nice 6-inch side, solid steel, not aluminum. Aluminum that melts if it looks at a missile coming at it. Starts melting as the missile's about 2 miles away. You know, those ships, they don't make them that way anymore, but you look at it and your secretary likes it, and I'm sort of open to it. And bullets are a lot less expensive than missiles. A lot of reasons. I should take a vote, but I'm afraid to take that vote because I may get voted out on that one. But I tell you, it's something we're seriously considering. There were powers. There were big powers. They were just about as mean and scary as you could be. And so we're looking at that.
Then Donald Trump starts talking about what he calls the N-word, referring to nuclear weapon. He then goes on to say there are different N-words out there. Take a listen to this clip.
Mention of nuclear, and it was really a stupid person that works for him mentioned the word nuclear. I moved a submarine or two, I won't say about the two, over to the coast of Russia, just to be careful, because we can't let people throw around that word. I call it the N-word. There are two N-words, and you can't use either of them. You can't use either of them. And frankly, if it does get to use, we have more than anybody else. We have better, we have newer, but it's something we don't ever want to even have to think about. But when somebody mentions it, that submarine started immediately thereafter.
Then Donald Trump claims that the US military become too woke after World War II, and that's why, according to him, it has not been winning war since. Take a look at this clip.
After that, now he gave a great speech, but he talked about Department of War. We were sitting there. I said, didn't it used to be called the Department of War? And he goes, yes, sir. They changed it like in the early 50s. So we won the First World War. We won the Second World War. We won everything in between and everything before that. We only won. And then we went, in a way, woke. That was probably the first sign of wokeness. And we changed it to defense instead of war. And I said, what do you think? How do you think if we change it back? Would that be a nice idea?
Next, Donald Trump begins claiming that a major part of what these military generals and admirals will be asked with is invading American cities, especially inner cities, as part of somehow kind of war. He then launches into a bizarre, made-up story about firefighters being shot at while trying to put out fires. Watch this clip.
Fire department. I always put the fire department in because they're great. They're great. And I got 95% of their vote, too. That helps. When you get 95% of their vote, you always have to mention them. But they're great. And they're brave in our inner cities, which we're going to be talking about, because it's a big part of war now. It's a big part of war. But the firemen go up in ladders, and you have people shooting at them while they're up in ladders. I don't even know if anybody heard that. And I said, don't talk about it much, but I think you have to. Our firemen are incredible. They're up in one of these ladders that goes way up to the sky, rescuing people, and you have animals shooting at them, shooting bullets at firemen that are way up in death territory. You fall off that ladder, it's over.
Then Donald Trump takes a shot at Democrats right in front of our military generals and admirals, claiming that do not respect the military. It's hard to overstate just how American and inappreciate this moment is. Take a look.
Administration. They did not treat you with respect. They're Democrats. They never do.
Then he randomly starts spelling the word lore, Lore. Watch the moment for yourself. Roll the clip.
Military legends and lore. That's Lore. It is lore.
Then Donald Trump circles back to talking about battleships, saying that because he is a very aesthetic person, he does not like the look of modern steel stealth ship. Instead, he says we should return to the large steel battleship from the early 20th or even 18th or 19th centuries. Watch this clip.
In the Second World War, they were freighters and different types, but we were doing a ship a day. And now we don't do ships. And I'm not a fan of some of the ships you do. I'm a very aesthetic person, and I don't like some of the ships you're doing aesthetically. They say, oh, it's stealth. I said, that's not stealth. An ugly ship is not necessary in order to say you're stealth. By the way, the B-2 bombers were incredible. That is stealth. They went into that.
Then Donald Trump claims that one of the biggest battles he ever faced was insisting on calling the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America. He says, huge fight, big fight here. Take a listen.
There's been no fight. There's been no fight. Like what I called the Gulf of America, the Gulf of America, because to me it was always the Gulf of America. I could never understand. We have 92% of the frontage. And for years, actually 350 years that were there before us, it was called the Gulf of Mexico. I just had this idea. I'm looking at a map, I'm saying, we have most of the frontage. Why is it Gulf of Mexico? Why isn't it the Gulf of America? And I made the change, and it went smoothly. I mean, we had a couple of fake news outlets that refused to make the change. And then one of them, AP, took us to court, and we won. And the judge, who was a somewhat liberal judge, said the name is the Gulf of America, because AP refused to call it the Gulf of America. They wrote, they're not a good outfit, by the way. They call it the Gulf of Mexico. I said, no, the Gulf of America is the name. And the judge actually said that, in fact, you can't even go into the room because what you're doing is not appropriate. The name is the Gulf of America. Google Maps changed the name. Everybody did, but AP wouldn't. And then we won in court. How about that? Isn't that so cool?
Then Donald Trump says, look, everyone here need to know how hot we are. We are the hottest country. He goes on claim that Vladimir Putin told him the same thing during a meeting in Alaska. Then Putin said, you are hot. Trump speaking to our military generals and admirals, bragging that our adversary Putin praised the US. I cannot stress enough how drainage and borderline treatise this song. Then Trump casually brushes off Putin's subsequent attack on KV by saying, well, it's one of those things. He tells me we are hot, then he attacked KV. Whatever. Watch this clip for yourself.
You were a dead country, and now you're the hottest country anywhere in the world. We're the hottest country in the world right now. The absolute hottest country in the world. There's nobody even close. Putin said that to me. We met in Alaska, had a good meeting. Then he went back and started sending drones into Kiev. I said, I thought we had a good meeting. But it's one of those things. But we were a dead country a year ago, and now we're the hottest country anywhere in the world. Think of that.
Then Donald Trump attacks his political opponents, claiming that people actually love the military when it invades their cities. He insists the only reason anyone would oppose such invasion is because they have been paid off by the people like George Soros. Watch this clip.
And you know what the people say? The people in those cities where they're being raped and shot and beat up, You know, they say, we love the military. You ever see where they interview the people on the street? I've never seen somebody say they don't, unless they're radical and paid off, because a lot of these insurrectionists are paid by, whether it's Soros or other people, but they're paid by the radical left.
Then Donald Trump claims that Portland looks like a scene from World War II. If you have been following my videos on Portland, Oregon, you know that's far from the truth. I have shown farmer markets, people enjoying the parks, and even the quiet area in front of the ICE facilities where only a few people are present. So no, it's definitely not World War II. But this is what Trump says. Let's play the clip.
They're considering it a great week. They shouldn't lose any. You shouldn't lose any. This is civilization. And he's always up there saying, we're in very good shape. We don't need the military. No, they need the military desperately. How about Portland? Portland, Oregon, where it looks like a war zone. And I get a call from the liberal governor. Sir, please don't come in. We don't need you. I said, well, unless they're playing false tapes, this looked like World War II. Your place is burning down. I mean, you must be kidding. Sir, we have it under control. I said, you don't have it under control, Governor, but I'll check it and I'll call you back. I called her back. I said, this place is a nightmare. It's certainly not the biggest, but it's one of the worst. It's brutal. They go after our ICE people who are great patriots and tough job too, but they love it. They love it because they're cleaning up our country. And so
Then Donald Trump says, I know you generals have to deal with racist people, but I deal with racist people who write bad stories about me here. Let's play the clip.
The vote that I got from the military, and they're vicious people, that we have to fight, just like you have to fight vicious people. Mine are a different kind of vicious. But they spread all these horrible, they made up statements and said what I said about everything, but even about the military. But fortunately, the military didn't believe it. It's hard. They make up a statement and they said, you say it. We had 25 people that said he never said that. 25. We had 25 affidavits. And they said, well, we're going with it anyway. These sleazebags. And that's why the press is really losing all power, because people aren't believing it. We need an honest press. We need borders. We need borders, we need an honest press, we need fair elections. I mean, those three things. And we don't have an honest press, we have a really corrupt press, but we fight through the corrupt press. And the people understand you have to do this stuff a lot. You have to go on television a lot because you can't get a fair shake if you're going to rely on somebody else. They don't understand. They've destroyed the image of media now is at the lowest point it's ever been. It's lower than Congress. Can you believe that? It's something.
Then Donald Trump goes on about Canada becoming the 51st state and talks about stealing Canada's sovereignty. Let's play the clip.
We help other countries with it. We don't have it ourselves. And Canada called me a couple of weeks ago. They want to be part of it. To which I said, well, why don't you just join our country? You become 51, become the 51st state, and you get it for free. So I don't know if that made a big impact, but it does make a lot of sense. It actually meant because they're having a hard time up there in Canada now, because as you know, with tariffs, everyone's coming into our country. We have more investment than we've ever had before, $17 trillion coming in. As an example, in 4 years, Biden didn't have $1 trillion. We have 17 trillion more than that in 8 months coming in. And they're coming in from Canada, Mexico, from Europe, from all over. AI, auto plants. Everybody's coming back to the United States.
Donald Trump claims he's brought in trillions of dollars. Yet another falsehood. Let's play the clip.
I'm okay with that, but they hit me hard. But it is. I mean, when you look at, we've taken in trillions of dollars. We're rich again, and there'll never be, when we finish this out, there'll never be any wealth like what we have. Other countries were taking advantage of us for years and years. You know that better than anybody. And now we're treating them fairly. But the money coming in is, we've never seen anything like it. The other day they had 31 billion that they found, $31 billion. So we found $31 billion and we're not sure from where it came. A gentleman came, a financial guy. I said, well, what does that mean? He said, we don't know where it came. I said, check the tariff shelf. No, sir, the tariffs haven't started in that sector yet. I said, yes, they have. They started 7 weeks ago. Check it. Comes back 20 minutes later. Sir, you're right. It came from tariffs. 31 billion. That's enough to buy a lot of battleships, Admiral, to use an old term. I think we should maybe.
Then you have Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of Defense, who unlawfully calls himself the Secretary of War, telling everyone no beards, no long hair, no individual expression. We are not going to have a military full of Nordic pagans, as Senator Robin Gallego, a fellow veteran, point out. Seriously, they flew in every general just so they could hear Pete Hegseth say this. Why this clip?
This also means grooming standards. No more beards, long hair, superficial individual expression. We're going to cut our hair, shave our beards, and adhere to standards. Because it's like the broken windows theory of policing. It's like when you let the small stuff go, the big stuff eventually goes. So you have to address the small stuff. This is on duty, in the field, and in the rear. If you want a beard, you can join special forces. If not, then shave. We don't have a military full of Nordic pagans. But unfortunately, we have had leaders who either refuse to call BS and enforce standards, or leaders who felt like they were not allowed to enforce standards.
Then Hegseth starts saying he does not want anyone in the military to be overweight. Speaking directly to the generals and admirals, he insists that everyone must be physically fit and pass their training. He even looks around the crowd and says if any of them are overweight, they are not allowed to be there. Why this clip?
It all starts with physical fitness and appearance. If the Secretary of War can do regular, hard PT, so can every member of our joint force. Frankly, it's tiring to look out at combat formations, or really any formation, and see fat troops. Likewise, it's completely unacceptable to see fat generals and admirals in the halls of the Pentagon and leading commands around the country and the world. It's a bad look. It is bad, and it's not who we are. So whether you're an airborne ranger or a chairborne ranger, a brand new private or a 4-star general, you need to meet the height and weight standards and pass your PT test. And as the chairman said, yes, there is no PT test. But today, at my direction, every member of the joint force at every rank is required to take a PT test twice a year, as well as meet height and weight requirements twice a year, every year of service. Also today, at my direction, every warrior across our joint force is required to do PT every duty day. Should be common sense. I mean, most units do that already, but we're codifying it. And we're not talking like hot yoga and stretching. Real hard PT, either as a unit or as an individual. At every level, from the Joint Chiefs to everyone in this room to the youngest private, leaders set the standard. And so many of you do this already. Active, Guard, and Reserve.
Again, this seems like Hegseth's attempt to mimic the famous General Patton speech, but it comes off as utterly pathetic. Hegseth says they are improving drill sergeants to discipline troops through pressing physical contact and even hitting recruit. According to him, that's how discipline will be enforced. Why this clip?
We will not lose warfighters because we fail to train or equip them or resource them. Shame on us if we do. Train like your warriors' lives depend on it, because they do. To that point, basic training is being restored to what it should be. Scary, tough, and disciplined. We're empowering drill sergeants to instill healthy fear in new recruits, ensuring that future warfighters are forged. Yes, they can shark attack, they can toss bunks, they can swear, and yes, they can put their hands on recruits. This does not mean they can be reckless or violate the law, but they can use tried and true methods to motivate new recruits, to make them the warriors they need to be. Back to basics at basic as well.
Then he goes on to say they are going to reconsider their hazing policies and anti-hazing rules, and basically suggests that much of that behavior will be soon be allowed. That's what I am hearing here. Play this clip.
Real toxic leadership is endangering subordinates with low standards. Real toxic leadership is promoting people based on immutable characteristics or quotas instead of based on merit. Real toxic leadership is promoting destructive ideologies that are an anathema to the Constitution and the laws of nature and nature's God, as Thomas Jefferson wrote in the Declaration of Independence. The definition of toxic has been turned upside down, and we're correcting that. That's why today, at my direction, we're undertaking a full review of the department's definitions of so-called toxic leadership, bullying, and hazing, to empower leaders to enforce standards without fear of retribution or second guessing. Of course, you can't do like nasty bullying and hazing. We're talking about words like bullying and hazing and toxic. They've been weaponized and bastardized inside our formations, undercutting commanders and NCOs. No more. Setting, achieving, and maintaining high standards is what you all do. And if that makes me toxic, then so be it.